Gonna get the day started here. Try to anyway. Six o'clock in the morning. Breakfast of champions right there. Alright, I'm in my dad's truck. I had to take my wife to work because I still got to get tires put on her car, which came in last night. There's the blue whale. So I am on Route 66, heading back toward home now, but I'll have to drop the Diva dog here off at the park, let her run around a little bit before I can go back home, because she goes crazy when we get to the bridge. Anyway, so this truck, it had a pretty bad transmission fluid leak at the speedometer housing. It's where the little plastic gear goes through the speedometer housing. There's a little cup seal in there. The plastic gear had worn down a little bit, so it was allowing a lot of fluid to go through. So the transmission fluid was getting inside the speedometer cable. So I took all that stuff apart. I took the plastic gear out of that 250C transmission that my friend Jason brought me. It was a different color gear, meaning it has different teeth, but the speedometer was off on this truck by 10 miles per hour. So I put that gear in there because it calipered out. It was a lot bigger around, it wasn't as worn. And I put a new cup seal in, fixed the transmission fluid leak. So driving the truck with the GPS on the cell phone, it was 5 miles per hour off. So I got 5 mile per hour fix on changing the gear. And then on the way taking her to work, the speedometer itself made some weird clink sound, and now the speedometer's not working. So it has nothing to do with what I did down on the transmission, but now the sound like the spring broke inside the speedometer, so it's just my luck. I mean, can't ever fix one thing and, you know, without breaking something else. So I guess when I get back, I'm going to climb under there and see if something happened under there with a cable or something. I don't have any idea, but it sure gets frustrating sometimes. I can't even get started on my hardtop project because the carrier bearing is out on my pickup. So now I've got to do all that. It needs new U-joints anyway, they're clunking, so might as well just do it all. And then I got to get tires put on my wife's car. So I'm telling you, man, it's frustrating. Once something goes bad, it seems like we get a group of it. So I'm never going to get ahead is what it is. Anyway, I'm going to let her out to do her thing. And alright guys, it is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. So I'm going to try to get back to work on the 55 today. Yesterday I had to work on the driver stuff all day. I got 3 projects going on. I had to put new tires on my wife's car. I had to take it down and get those put on. So I got her car back on the road. She's driving it to work this morning, so I don't have to mess with that one for a while, hopefully. My carrier bearing went out of my long bed 87 GMC square body, so I posted a video of that. Anyway, I've got that mess here that's not finished yet. I've got to take that part of the drive shaft with the carrier bearing on it to have it pressed off and a new one pressed on, because I don't have a press here. And I don't have a bearing remover tool either. I tried to do that about 20 years ago in my driveway without having proper tools, and I spent a couple hours jacking with it, and all I did was ruin some all thread and stuff. So I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm just going to take it and have it swapped. I've got my dad's pickup here, 82 short wide, that has a few little issues that I have started fixing on, and then I fixed one, and then something else happened, and it's ongoing. I am not going to work on neither square body today. I am taking a day and I'm going to work on my 55. I need to get some stuff done. So the plan for today is, I've got my 406 small block here. My buddy Jason came over, measured for push rod length. I found the exact push rod length in Summit, and they were in stock. I ended up ordering parts for this yesterday. I ordered a cam button, which I forgot to order. I knew I needed that and I forgot it. I ordered the push rods that I need for my hydraulic roller cam. I also ordered some Howard's valve springs that match my camshaft. So All of those parts were in stock, and they were at the Arlington, Texas Summit facility. So I ordered them yesterday, so they should be here. If they're not here today, they'll definitely be here tomorrow, I think. So that's pretty awesome. So what I need to do today is try to paint the engine block and the oil pan. I think that's the only parts I got to paint to the engine. When I done the 350 that's in that plastic down there that I had in this car, I painted every piece to the engine separately. The heads were painted separate, the timing cover, the oil pan, the block, everything was separately painted. And in the event, which it ended up coming true, had to take anything apart on the engine, it didn't flake paint, chip paint, or hurt anything because everything was painted separately. So that worked out awesome. So now I don't have to repaint my heads, my timing cover, my intake, none of that stuff. I just got to paint the block and the new oil pan because I'm going from passenger side dipstick 350 to a driver side dipstick 400. So, you know, I had to change the oil pan obviously, but I do have some of the paint still in the can that I used on this. I basically took some Chevy orange spray paint from Duplicolor and I sprayed a spray out card. I took it to the paint store and I had them custom mix it in base coat, clear coat. The base basically, and I had them put gold pearl in it, so it is a Chevy pearl orange base coat clear coat. And yes, you can base coat clear coat engines because a lot of pro shops have done it for years, and I've done it for years. That stuff holds up very well. It will discolor around the area of your headers, but otherwise it sticks pretty well to your engine if it's prepped correctly. So, which somebody's going to ask, I don't primer my engines. When they come back from the machine shop, they're clean. I just degrease them with wax and grease remover, clean them up real good, and I will use whatever color Duplicolor engine enamel out of the aerosol. And I'll leave that on there for a little bit, and then I'll go back with a gray Scotch-Brite and lightly scuff it so the paint will stick, and then I put the base right over, and then I put the clear over it. And I've never had a delamination issue. So I did one of this in probably 1998, 1999 to a 55 Chevy I fixed up. I body colored the engine to match the car, and it was base coat, clear coat. So I've done a lot of them since, but I like clear coating the engine parts with automotive urethane clear out of the spray gun because the stuff really holds up well to chemicals, and it's easy to clean. It's like makes it so slick smooth that it just everything wipes off real nice. So. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started on prepping this engine out and possibly getting it painted today. So I've already removed the few bolts that we had in it to measure for push rod length. So I'm going to go ahead and get the cylinder head taken off, set over there out of the way and covered up. And then I didn't take the head gasket off and put it back in the box. I'm going to have to drill steam holes in these Edelbrock heads. They do not have any, so I've got to use the gasket for a template. But very important if you did not know that. I've mentioned it several times in at least 4 or 5 of my videos. You can put just about any small block head you want on a 400 small block, but you've got to have the steam holes in them. I've put 305 HO heads on a 400 before with steam holes. So anyway, hopefully this thing comes off pretty easy. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clean the block up. I'm just going to use some brake clean and a brand new microfiber. And then before I paint it, I'm going to put on another new microfiber, some wax and grease remover, and go over it again. This thing is covered in oil from my assembly lube and, you know, oily fingers, and it's really a nasty mess. I'm using that coarse side of the microfiber because it's pretty grippy, but it doesn't leave behind any microfiber lint like the fuzzy side of it does. And it's pulling off a little bit. All right, so I'm going to show you some paint masking tips for your engine to get a little bit cleaner of a job, or a little bit better of a job, I'll say. The normal person, and I used to do it myself, you know, when I'd paint an engine, I'd go in and I'd clean this whole area, the deck surface right here, just clean it all, clean metal. And then you'd put your head gasket on, then you'd put your head on and torque it down. And then when you're done, you've got, you know, bare metal showing in a lot of these places, and that ends up surface rusting like this area right here. So what I normally do is I had an old set of new Felpro head gaskets, and I have them all masked off, and these are my paint mask, and you can see on the bottom right there how they got that cutout in them. So if you want a paint job full on your block without getting surface rust in bare metal areas, it's best to use the gasket, the head gasket you're using for a paint mask. Now, the 400 head gaskets I have are different than those 350 ones. The bottoms of them just have little half circles cut out in them. So I basically laid out some masking tape along this area here. I laid the head gasket on there and snapped it over the dowels. And then I took a fine tip Sharpie, and as I held the gasket down, basically went around that gasket and drew the outline of the head gasket onto the tape. And then I grabbed a brand new razor blade, and I held down on the gasket with one hand, and then I went around it with the razor blade on the edge of the gasket. Holding the gasket on there is a perfect thing to, it's like cutting up against a straight edge, basically. But anyway, it cut it out exactly where I needed it. And then pulled the head gasket back off, and now after I finish taping off the main top area here, I will have paint in the exact area that doesn't need to be cleaned off to bare metal. In the event when you do this, if you have a head gasket failure or something, and you remove the head, you don't disturb that paint right there. So when I painted the engine, the 350 for my hardtop that I had in it, I painted every piece separately. The intake was painted separately, the heads were painted separately, but I did the timing cover and the oil pan on the engine. Now, since I went from a passenger side dipstick 350 to a driver side dipstick 400, my oil pan won't work. Otherwise, I could have reused my oil pan and not even had to repaint it or touch it up because it come apart clean. So what I'm going to do this time, I don't have to repaint my timing cover. It still looks awesome. I've got this old one over here, which you can see I've used for a paint mask before. And I went ahead and stuck it on there, and I just kind of run the bolts down until they stop. These are some little socket cap Allens, basically like this. This one's a little long, but you get the idea. Now the reason that I'm using these, mainly because these are old crappy old bolts and I don't really care about them, but the oil pan I am using. So the problem, or to save yourself a problem, I should say, on your bolts underneath your oil pan, if you're going to do it like this, which I'll say, I don't have the gaskets on here, so I'll be able to get paint blown down in that edge right there. So when I do put the gasket on, it'll catch that edge of the paint. You won't see it. You'll just see a blue gasket around there. So anyway, this is how I do it. The little bit of overspray that you are going to get in your engine, it ain't going to hurt anything. So anyway, these socket cap Allens like this, I have one on each side holding the oil pan on right in the middle. Now when I go in here under here to paint this, when I pull that bolt out of there, it's got a really small diameter head. This is the bolts that I'll be using, these 12-point ARPs. So you can see how long or how big the head difference is. It ain't gonna stay that way. You can see the head difference right there, the diameter. So, you know, where you've got them bolts in that oil pan rail is what I'm trying to say. When you pull them out, you're gonna have a spot that's not painted, but the bolts that you're actually gonna use will cover it. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to get at. But anyway, I always mask off this, and then I run the timing cover down and just the oil pan down, and then that way when I go in and paint, you know, the paint will get seeped down in here on the edge of that pan right there. So when I put the blue one-piece Felpro rubber pan gasket on there, it'll just be a super clean, sanitary engine. And when you go to take the oil pan or something off later, or timing cover, it doesn't hurt the paint. Now, I will say, on aluminum heads, this is a trick I learned. On aluminum heads, if you're going to paint your heads like I did, I'll actually take you over here and show you. So, if you went in here and painted where your outside head bolts go, if you painted that down in there and then you went back and put the heads on and you torqued those bolts down, it would basically rip and peel and flake that paint out of there. So what I did on mine, since they were aluminum and I don't have to worry about them rusting, I laid nickels on those. I just set them down in there. They fit perfectly in the metal block heads. And then I painted the cylinder heads, and then after it dried, I just popped the nickels out. So when the bolts go down, they don't hurt any paint in there or chip or flake anything. So another little masking tip you can do there. And if you are going to paint your timing cover on your engine, the one you're going to use, and like this, which this is a paint mask one, you can use some spray paint can lids will fit inside where that seal is. If you had the seal out of it, which I would recommend you put a new seal in it, get the new seal in it before you paint it. That way you don't tear the paint up trying to put the new front pump seal or front cover seal in it. In that case, you can just go around with some masking tape and then trim it out with a razor blade. But if you are going to paint it without a seal in it, you can stick some spray paint caps down in there and it'll fit in there. So there's a good little clip-on mask there. But this cover, since I don't care about it, I just masked it off kind of crudely there. So anyway, I'm going to finish masking off all of this up here. And I'm basically just going to take some construction paper and cut a piece that fits up here and over the head and everything and do it that way, instead of wasting a bunch of masking tape. A little bit cheaper to do it with some, I've got old sheets of construction paper and stuff everywhere, so I'll just use that. But anyway, I did put a plug, just kind of run it down a few threads in here. I'm going to change this out with a stainless steel one. I do have stainless steel ones to go in here, but of course I don't want them painted. So I just left them out. It's not going to get enough paint in there to hurt anything in the coolant. Anyway, just a nice, quick little way of masking off. Now, on the fuel pump section there, I'm going to use the gasket, if I can find it. Where the heck is that at? Oh, there it is right there. I can't even see it right in front of my eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the razor blade and I'm going to cut out around these bolt holes, and then I'm going to stick a couple of bolts in that to get me a good Sharpie pencil line around there, or pin line around it, so I'll have something to mask to. And again, if I ever have to take that plate off, it's not going to destroy the paint by painting everything all together. Anyway. All right, guys, so I just got done spraying the engine and pulled it back up here. I had it way out there in the driveway. But anyway, this is Duplicolor engine enamel, Chevy orange, which it looks a little more red. This is the different one. There are two on the market that you need to know. Anyway, I'm basically just using it for a sealer, you know, a tinted sealer is all I'm using it for. That spray paint bonds to bare metal very well, so especially a cast iron end block that has a rough cast, you know what I mean? Anyway, I've never had a problem with delamination by not priming the engine blocks, so I never do. It's just another substrate that I don't think needs to be on there, but hey, if you feel better with primer, then go for it. So anyway, I've got it all fully covered, and so I should have nice even coverage when I go to spray that base coat orange pearl in there tomorrow. Anyway, these are both Duplicolor engine enamels. Now, these are older cans. I don't even know if they still make one of these part numbers or not, but do be aware that there are different part numbers. So one of them is more red than orange, so just be aware of that.